there. Have a look at the wing. You need a wing, 1 W1 and 4, not 5 W2s. So put that one back over there. Now, let's just put that over there. Now, we need to get that little nick off of there like that. W2 goes in there. These will be glued in with foam adhesive. Just wondering why those wing ribs, I would have thought, should have come down behind these white lines, but they're showing in front there as well. So I'm going to glue those in there like that, and they snap into position as well. Okay, let's glue in the wing ribs. Just want to see how the wings fit. I'm surprised they don't have little struts actually, because they're going to be a bit vulnerable. I may, you never know, I may add some struts. We'll see how floppy it all feels. Yeah, first off, let's glue these ribs in. It says CA, to glue them in with CA, but of course I haven't got any foam safe CA, so I'm going to use this stuff. Make sure you're building on a flat surface as well. So run all the ribs in. Just bent W1 in slightly, just so as I've got plenty of carbon rod. Touching it. Just a little bit of CA just to hold it there. Now it says fold it over and fold and glue along the back edge. This is the aileron, I guess that's the hinges by the look of it. And then when it's made, then I slide in a piece of carbon rod, leaving 15mm sticking out. Now, I've had an idea reading that, and that is, they're showing you gluing the carbon rod in with CA. That's a pair of those, but I'm not entirely happy just putting a bit of CA on the rib that's sticking out, and there's absolutely no reason why I couldn't put it in now and glue it, so that's what I'm going to do. Besides which, another point is getting it pushed through these holes when you can't see the inner hole is going to be a little bit of a nightmare. So this has to be 15mm past the end of the wing. 15. If you're having trouble pushing this in, you can always just sharpen the end a little bit. Just take off the cut. I'll tell you something else. These are going to be glued into the fuselage. I just like to just rough the carbon up slightly, just to give it a little bit of a key, you know. Okay, 15mm. Now I'm going to glue that in now. I'm just slightly concerned that these folds aren't in the, they ought to be there's no point in them being at the bottom there because they're not doing anything. And that's very sharp leading edge, that, so it's got to crease precisely, and it's digging into the ribs a little bit there. I can see these wing ribs pushing through the fronts. I wish I just rounded them ever so slightly just to take that sharp edge off. Actually, maybe I can file them. Okay. Fold it. And down. Right, that'll have to be left overnight now. So that's one done. I'll do the other one, and we'll leave it overnight and glue them in the morning. Could mount the motor actually. Just before I go, I've just punched the ribs out for the other wing, but unlike the first wing, I'm just gonna take off just a little bit of wood on the leading edge there. That sharp bit, it's going to come through the leading edge. Pretty easy to do actually, and I'll show you an easy way of doing it. All you need to do is to thread them onto one of these, or both pieces of carbon rod. So now we've got a nice uniform set of ribs that isn't going to, hopefully, too much go into the foam. Okay, so welcome back guys. We've had a few hours for it to dry, so the wheels are done. Do they roll? Oh yeah, they work. And that one? Yep, fully working. Yeah, so 2 washers on the top and on the side gives me a bit of writing down first. Everything looks in order. In the instructions for the Aileron, they talk about the rudder arm of the steering gear and refer to the position of the rudder horn on the tail to determine the appropriate length. It's the wrong caption for this. They'd obviously mean Aileron. Right, now these should, in theory, line up with the holes in the fuselage. They've got to be perfect to line up, and it goes. Look at that. A salvage bobber appears. Be interesting to see how the flight compares to the big one. Putting on weight, but it's going to be quite pokey little motor, so it should be okay. So I don't know, does it need struts? I mean, they're going to glue on. Bit of flexing the holes in the braces they plug into are probably slightly bigger, so but they'll glue up, glue tight. So there's a little bit of movement there, so make sure that you get a same angle of incidence on both sides. You wouldn't want one down and one up. I think you can just make out the little pin pricks of the ribs. It's made the foam go slightly white. But this side, you can feel it, but it's not so pronounced, so it was worth rounding the front of those ribs a little bit. So I'm going to power up the servos, slip them in as shown. I might need to epoxy those in, or a little bit of, be careful with hot glue, it's going to melt the foam. Probably epoxy them in. Install the horns, the little push rods as they show you, same as we did on the other ones. I think this bit's worth showing you guys. Just drop the servo in and it drops right down into the wing, but it's showing pretty much flush with the bottom of the wing. So what I've done, well, two things, let me tell you. To get the servo to go down vertically, it's very difficult to get it past the wires. So I've just put a little notch in the corner there, just so as I can drop it vertically. The other thing I've done, I'm using epoxy for this, by the way. The other thing I've done is I've cut a little bit of scrap foam off of the side panel, and I'm just putting it, let's put it on that. I'm just sticking that down onto the surface to support the servo at the correct height. It just seems to be the perfect height. So a little bit of epoxy on there, a little bit on the base of the servo. And drop it in. Simple as that. You'll find that this little corner just catches a little bit and you've got to ease it past. Or cut it out, whichever you prefer, but it will go up and over like that. So you end up with a servo which is flush to the surface as illustrated, and really solid construction, solid fitting. Right, I'm just going to heat shrink the connectors. Little tip for you, when you put the connectors on, try and get the carbon joiner at the same side. So here it's underneath the joiner. If you put one on the other side, just alters the geometry of everything, so try and keep it neat and keep everything on the same side, if you understand me. So anyway, just check the aileron throw, everything's working. The ailerons actually move quite a long way. What they do in flight, of course, is another question, but I've set the ailerons up so as it's smooth with the top surface of the wing. While I had the epoxy resin mixed up, I epoxied on the control horns as well. So rudder and elevator are fixed up, ready to go. So I'm just going to heat shrink the tail end there, heat shrink those, and we can move on with the final stages, I guess. Obviously the foam is going to be quite heat sensitive, so don't get the iron too close to that. If you're not sure, you can always put down something, bit of card, bit of balsa, bit of scrap, something. Just the heat you want, really. What I'm going to do is to run some super glue in there as advised. It's a good idea. This aeroplane you could probably build in a day. It's been less than a day for me so far. I didn't start it till about 3 o'clock yesterday afternoon, and I did stop for the tea and what have you, and now it's 10 o'clock next morning. Did stay up to the wee hours, but I was enjoying myself. Okay, right, next job is to moving on. Looks like it might be to fit the wings. Fit the wings, sir. Oh, I've still got the tail skid to fit. Shall we fit the tail skid for a bit of fun? A bit of fun. I've also got another little piece here. What's this? Part of it? Yes, that'll go on the inside, I guess. I think there is one in there. What I'm going to have to do is to get the Dremel out and just open that slot up to mount that one. Okay, so there's another thing to be aware of. There is a slot right in the back of that triangular piece for the tail wheel. So I'll get the Dremel out in a minute. Anything else I can do? Now the undercarriage goes in this slot here quite nicely, quite stiffly. Okay, F14.1 is on this piece of wood here. So the undercarriage is retained by this little piece of plywood here, which is F14.1. And that just goes down between in there. Oh, I know what those little tubes are. They're wheel retainers, aren't they? So I've just run my little drill bit through the wheel and turning nice. So these little rubbery bits, I've just cut one down. Actually goes on there quite nicely. I don't think it's going to come off that easily, but just to be on the safe side, I'm going to put a small hint of CA on it, just to hopefully guarantee that it stays on. And oh, tail skid, I've just put the tail skid on, so I dremeled out the slot slightly, dropped the tail skid in, and then put the little keeper on the inside and CA'd it all. It seems to be quite good. Don't want to push my luck yet, the CA is still curing. Not sure if I should put these in before I put the wing on actually. Maybe it might be an idea to put the wing on first. For that, I think I'm going to use, obviously I've got to thread the cable down. That will go in there, through that hole. Come on. And then could CA it, I suppose, but I don't want to panic to get it in there. I want to take my time. So what I might do is mix up some epoxy for this. There's the little hole. Mix up some epoxy for the actual tubes and put some white glue around the foam. And then when that's on, then I can stick the top windscreen on when I've got the radio equipment sorted out. I think the illustration shows the receiver just sitting up here in this area, stuffed in. I might make it a little bit more secure, we'll see. Be nice to be able to retain the ability to get in there, but anyway. One thing I was sort of concerned or intrigued about is the lack of wing struts. You'd have thought you could have put, see, I could put a little hole in where that rib is, just glue it in down to here and make a pair of struts up. I think A, it would look good, just looking at the biggest bother, A, it would look good, and B, serve quite a good functional purpose, because I'm not entirely sure. I might be overthinking it, probably am. So that's what I'll do, guys. I'll mix up some epoxy and we'll get that set in, and I'll see you back here to put the top panel on the undercarriage. Okay, let's have a look, see what we've got. It's been a few minutes. Obviously the white glue I put on is still drying, but the epoxy's cured, so it's a nice fit along the bottom edges. We're going to connect up the electronics just to go down through that hole down there. I think this is a 5-channel receiver. Oh, one other thing I have to do, there's an aerial on top of the receiver which they tuck in for transportation and what have you, but don't forget to pull it out. Mount the receiver somewhere there, about there. So I just need to put a little plate in there of some sort. Okay, so there we are. I'm happy with that. So now I've got access to the cable there. I've got the aerial wire, can go down there. Motor wire, I think, needs just to go to one side. When you adjust CG, you can use this battery balance weight. So 20mm back from the leading edge, which is probably going to be pretty much on that front main spar. So we got quite a nice balance there. Look, I think we can safely now glue on the top covering. A little bit tight up there, but it does go. It's a nice fit actually. Slightly shy of the front there, so I don't want to go too far back. That's going to glue in a treat. Let's get that glued in. Now what glue am I going to use? I'm going to use white glue here. Going to go about there to there. I'll make sure that's in there like that. Okay, just want to make sure that stays back there. It's just a little bit short of the front edge there, but it's not the end of the world, and it is still supported on the back half of the former, the second piece in behind. Right, just two little things to fit now. The undercarriage, which is ready to go, wheels still turn, and that little piece of plywood goes in there to retain it. That's that bit there, and the prop, and then that little bit of wood. I'm going to put a smidgen of glue there. That'll hold that in. Push it down a little bit. Okay, this is a EP 5030. Okay, got it. Just tidy that up like that. So now if you hit the prop, hit the ground, you've got a degree of flexibility in there. I'm thinking struts. I'm sure it'd be fine as long as you don't cartwheel it or something. But if I wanted to fit struts, let's have a look. It goes from basically above the undercarriage, the front of the compartment, back to that rib there. So if I can get a good fixing into the plywood, just a hole through there, it could even butt up to the undercarriage mounting plywood. Here's the struts I've decided. I'm going to use this flat carbon stuff, flat carbon bar. I've made a little hole next to the rib here and a little hole up here next to the undercarriage block. And I'm just going to epoxy resin them in place. I think it looks much nicer with them. The big one I've got, it goes something like that as a pair, but one's going to do the job. I've only got this much, so it's going to be one each side. There it is, the DW Savage Bopper Mini, ready to go. Little test flight. Should be a lot of fun. Should be quite aerobatic. So I hope you enjoyed that, guys. A couple of points worth noting on the way through, so I hope you pick up on those. I'll see you up the field for the maiden flight. Hit the little subscribe button down below if you've enjoyed it, and give us a thumbs up. And it's taken me, well, I started at 3 PM yesterday, it's now 1:30 PM next day, so, and obviously I've slept and stopped for meals, etc. So it's a pretty quick build, a little bit fiddly on the back end, but take your time and you get there. Hopefully it'll be quite aerobatic as well. Cheers, guys. Cheers, cheers.